even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, as I told you and our listeners yesterday, I'm a big Liverpool fan. They are currently playing in the Champions League, the kickoff of the tournament. So that's why I'm sporting the red jersey.
They're leading right now. And you know how I know that? I just got off of the great Mark Madden show in Pittsburgh that I do every Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon. Mark is a massive Liverpool fan. He always makes the pilgrimage over. And he says, I used to have Matthew Barnaby on, and one time I had him on and Liverpool was leading 3-0. And eventually Liverpool got tied 3-3. He said, so Matthew can't come on the show anymore. Every time I have you on, Pierre, Liverpool's either ahead or comes from behind and either ties or wins. So he goes, You're always welcome on my show. All right. So I'm going to best Barney on that. I'm going to give
There we go, Pierre. Well, then I'm happy that I've got you as a co-host. That means you're going to win every game.
I'm happy too.
There we go. And I'm happy for obvious reasons as well. But we've got a great show in line for you here today. We did do our LA Kings preview last week, but as we told you, we were trying to get an LA Kings guest. It just didn't work out because of scheduling. We have been granted access to former NHLer and Kings Director of Player Development, Glen Murray, who I had the pleasure of covering towards the end of his career. Loved Muzz, great guy, what a good player as well. And he's going to be joining us shortly here to talk about the Kings prospects and their upcoming season as well. And then we will continue our Central Division preview, Pierre, and we'll talk about the Minnesota Wild and Utah Hockey Club, who, by the way, it appears because Clayton Keller last week kind of let the cat out of the bag there. He said Yeti by accident. So it appears they're heading towards that as a name. They should be called the Utah Yeti. We will see. I don't mind that. It'll be pretty cool. So we'll talk about them as Pierre and I have been doing for the past week or so, telling you we've got some excitement and optimism surrounding that club. So we'll get into that as well. And, of course, we'll finish things off with the Q&A with you, the listeners and viewers. So looking forward to that as always. But Pierre, first off, just some hockey news before we get Muzz on. The Dallas Stars agree to a 5-year, $26.25 extension with the defenseman Esa Lindell on Tuesday morning, I believe, or maybe it was early afternoon. But anyhow, he is locked up for the Stars. Just your initial reaction to that.
He's one of the better shutdown guys in the league. He's not going to get you a lot of offense, but he's a big physical guy. He's got really good mobility down low. Obviously he's a Finn, so good friends with Miro Heiskanen. That helps a lot. And I think that was a smart move. It's not an outrageous contract. It's a good contract for the team. It's cap friendly. He's a player that can play anywhere from 19 to 25 minutes in a game. So a valuable player and somebody that I thought Jimmy Nill, utilized some good decision-making there.
Yeah, and of course, we'll get into the Dallas Stars on Thursday. They'll be the last of the two teams, them and the Avalanche, that we preview for the Central Division. But, he fits in perfect with what they're doing there, Pierre, with their style, and obviously with the way Pete DeBoer plays. I think he's the type of guy that you want on your back end.
Remember, too, a couple of years ago, they lost Jamie Oleksiak, who was a really important player for their team in terms of size and shutdown capability, and he moved on to Seattle, and that really enhanced and made Esa Lindell a more important part of their team. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, too, this summer they lost Ryan Suter to St. Louis as an unrestricted free agent. So the Lindell deal actually makes a lot of sense for them, for the type of player they need in that role. And he knows his role. He understands. That's what he has to do. He's not about points. He's about shutting guys down, blocking shots, being an elite penalty killer.
Yep, for sure. I agree with you, Pierre. And, before we get to Muzz too, Pierre, I want to rewind to yesterday. We were talking a lot, obviously, about Lane Hudson. I'm actually writing a little piece for Sick Media News. Should be up there tonight. But, I listened to a lot of people again today, and it's hyped here. It's the level is very high right now. So, I urge people to watch yesterday's episode of the Eye Test and check out what Pierre had to say there, because he agrees, and he's the one that's been pumping them up forever. But they got to watch it, and they got to just be cautious. With cautious optimism, I think would be the proper term. But Pierre, I was thinking about the Canadiens as I was writing that story, and I got to the part where you're also talking about Logan Mailloux. in your eyes, what's the biggest attribute at this point? Obviously, we're going to see more development out of Mayu, but what's the biggest attribute you think he brings to that lineup?
For a bigger guy, he can control the tempo of the game. And bigger guys at key times in the season matter. The little guys can make a difference in different parts of the season. But, you said a term, you utilized a term yesterday, Jimmy, that I really thought was appropriate. You call it the dog days of the season. Mm-hmm. That's where those bigger players, they matter, especially if they have composure with the puck. And Logan Mailloux has that. He does. Yep. He has that ability to control the tempo of the game. I will never say that he will be Serge Savard, because Serge Savard was a special player.
Oh, yeah.
But what Serge did really well is he could defend, but he also controlled the flow of the game. I think Logan can get to that, and if he does, that'll make a big difference. I don't think he'll ever be as good as Serge, but I'm saying there are characteristics there that are really similar for Canadiens fans. That's one of his key components. He can control the flow of the game.
And in other Canadiens defenseman news, Pierre, he wasn't any superstar by any means, wasn't a top four by any means, but Chris Weidman retires today, and that I saw that news and immediately brought me back to a couple runs in the playoffs that the Canadiens had where, he wasn't exactly a key point maker by any means, but he was a good part of that dressing room. He was sort of one of those glue guys for those teams when he was with the Montreal Canadiens. And, I wish him the best. He was a useful defenseman. What was your take on his career?
He wasn't as good as Danny Boyle. I thought Danny Boyle, they're virtually the same size. They're both college players. Danny Boyle was really good player and, eventually became a Stanley Cup winner and a gold medal winner in the Olympics for Canada. Weidman was never as good as him, but coming out of college, there were a lot of people saying that's who he's going to be. Similarities were there, but not as good. Good player, solid, had a nice career, but I wouldn't say he's a guy where he's going to be in your top six on a Stanley Cup winning team every night. Whereas with Danny Boyle, I could tell you who's won the cup and was, a top four guy. He could be there. So when Weidman came out of school, I can just tell you, everybody was saying, this guy's got a chance to be like Danny Boyle. And I just didn't see it.
Right.
And I don't think the career ended up going there, but a very solid career and something he should be really proud of.
Yeah. And when I was up there covering the Canadiens for a bit in Montreal, and I'd be in the dressing room every day after practice or after games, he was just one of those guys that his teammates gravitated towards. And every team that's going to go far in the playoffs, to me, needs a guy like that, no matter what.
I agree. I think there's a lot of value there. That's why our show's called the Eye Test. Those players are eye test type players. And so, the numbers may not always be great, but you can see the components that he brings and you can hear what he says, and they matter. They matter a lot.
For sure. I'm getting a little message here from the Kings. Glen Murray's delayed a bit, so be here while we wait for him. Let's start our preview so we're not pressed later on and we can get our Q&A in, because that's our favorite part, of course, of this podcast. Let's start with the Utah, whatever they may become named, the Utah Hockey Club for now. Sounds like a soccer club, but let's start with them right now, Pierre. And one player I want to ask you about right off the bat, and then we'll sort of get into your take on the team and the big picture. But one player I want to talk to you about is Logan Cooley. How good and how much of a star to you can he become in this NHL?
I think he can be a real star. I remember when he was a kid growing up in Pittsburgh, and one of his babysitters used to be the general manager of the team, Ray Sherrill. He used to hang around at the Sherrill's house, and Mr. Sherrill used to be his babysitter. So,
wow.
Logan Cooley is a special player. A lot of people thought when Montreal took Slavkovsky first overall that maybe they'd go the U.S. route and take Logan Cooley, who was on his way to the University of Minnesota. And, eventually they took the bigger player. So if you were to ask me, is there a comparable for Logan Cooley? It's not fair, but there's a lot of similarities to Pat LaFontaine. I'm not saying he's ever going to be as good as Pat LaFontaine.
Okay.
But Logan Cooley has a lot of the same characteristics. He can play at a high tempo. He wants the puck on his stick. He can be an offensive game breaker. He can do a lot of different things. They're about the same size. So, if you'd ask me, who do they want him to end up being like? They want him to end up being like Pat LaFontaine. I don't know if he'll ever get there, but there are similarities in his game.
You know what's interesting? I want to rewind a bit there, Pierre, right off the top when you answered my question about Cooley, that I find interesting. It brought me back to 2022, right, in that draft in Montreal. And that wasn't the guy, neither guy that you mentioned there was the guy that we were being told by so many around the league, so many draft experts, that the Canadiens were going to draft. Of course, it was, it ended up being Slafkovsky, but it was Shane Wright, who everyone was putting in there, sliding him in at number 1, and it wasn't. Where were you? I forgive me for my short memory. I'm getting old. But where were you in terms of who they were going to take as that draft was approaching? Then on draft day, who did you think it was going to be? Honestly.
So the tape can't lie, because I covered that draft for Sportsnet. I was on the panel.
Okay.
I had just finished working in Ottawa. I had seen all the top prospects that entire year. So I had a real good handle on who I thought would go first, second, third, wherever. I said right off the top of the show that I thought Slafkovsky would go to Montreal.
Okay.
And Shane Wright wasn't even in my head. He wasn't even in the discussion for that first overall.
Was Cooley a possibility to you?
I had Cooley rated 2 or 3, and I think he went 3, but I had Cooley 2 or 3, but I didn't have anybody that draft year. And I was in Finland probably 2 or 3 different times on Slafkovsky, and plus watched him at the Olympics. So I didn't think they could miss. In fact, the guy we're about to have on, the first time I saw him play, he was 16 years old, playing in Moncton, New Brunswick. So there was a lot of similarities with Slafkovsky and Glen Murray in terms of size and finishing ability.
Well, let's bring on former NHLer and current Kings Director of Player Development, joining us right now via audio, Glen Murray. Muzz, how you been, my friend?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you great. It's good to hear your voice.
Awesome. Great to see you guys. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Well, Glenn, really well.
Awesome. Slafkovsky, I don't know about that, Pierre. That you're just being nice. Holy shit.
Hey,
Glenn, it's a monster.
Glenn, you know what? You can tell the people back in the day when you used to go to that old rink near Magnetic Hill in Moncton and play those summer tournaments. That's the first time I ever saw Glen Murray play, and I'd be like, wow, this guy's really good. And then obviously you ended up being I think you were a first-round pick of Sudbury, were you not?
I was a third-round pick in Sudbury in 87 or 88. Yeah. Jeez, I can't even remember, Pierre. But
that was 88.
That was because I'm Lindros's age. So, as the whole thing went on, and I became friends with Eric, and he's, at that time I was a kid from Nova Scotia, obviously, and I didn't know much about the OHL because we never really traveled there to play games or tournaments. But Jesus, nowadays the kids are flying 15 times a year to go to the tournaments or driving everywhere.
Hey, Jimmy, before Glenn gets going, I want to congratulate him. His son Parker's a really good player. I watched him play in Penticton. I watched him play in Wenatchee. I watched him play in Chilliwack. He's going to Cornell, Jimmy. He's a really good player. 6'4", 225, and I think he got some of Glenn's hands. I really do. Glenn can score. Yeah. And you think about that. I know you're in LA, so it's a little easier for you, but think about all these kids coming from Nova Scotia. My kid was from Boston. He's going out. He played in Penticton. All the kids going to the BCHL. It's unbelievable, huh, Glennie? It's really amazing.
It's a great opportunity for the kids. I knew about the BCHL, but when Parker went there and, I saw a few games, I didn't get to see a lot, but it's a great league. I mean, I really like it. It's good for the kids. Like they play the kids. Sometimes you go to a league and they're not quite ready, but they're very patient. And it's, as you guys know, coaches aren't very patient, Jesus. And they let the kids play, and maybe they sit out 1 or 2 games, but they let the kids play and learn how to play in that league. And I tell everyone, I think I love the league. I think it's a great league. It's stepping stone for, if they're going to go play the CHL or especially college hockey. And yeah, my son, he has his mom's brains. Maybe that's the most important thing.
Muzz, what did you know about Coach Fred Harbison there before he went to Penticton?
Say that again. I lost you, Jimmy.
Oh, it's okay. I was saying, how much did you know about the coach there in Penticton, Fred Harbison? Because we've had him on here a couple times, and he's one of our favorites.
No, I've known a few people have gone through there. I think Jimmy Hiller, our coach now, knows him fairly well. And there's everyone knows Fred, right? He's I talked to Scotty Niedermayer because he lives out here in California, and a couple of years ago about his his son going there, and I have nothing but good things to say about Freddie. They've done. I mean, to do what they've done over the past, how many years is it?
Yeah.
Pierre, you would know that, 20-some years plus, 20-plus years.
Freddie's been there 16 years, and all they do is win when Freddie's there. It's unbelievable. You know, it's interesting, Glenn. I got to share this with you. Fred called me up once, and he said, I got a guy that you know, and I'm trying to get his kid to come play here, but he's kind of torn whether he's going to come or not. So he gives me his number, and he says his name is Joe. So I call it. It's Joe Ludendyke.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I call up Joe because Freddie gives me the number. I said, hey, Joe, it's Pierre McGuire. You know, my son just is finishing in Penticton. He's going to go play U.S. college hockey, and he had an amazing experience, and I just wanted to call you. And I was like, Fred was so unassuming. He just call this guy Joe.
Yeah. I talked to Joe. I know Joe. It's funny because Joe is a huge Cornell guy, obviously. He's
exactly.
Mr. Cornell, Joe is. And I ran into Ronnie Francis. We just finished our rookie tournament here in LA with, our 7 teams that we have. And I ran into Ronnie. I played with Ronnie in Pittsburgh, and we were talking. I had said, I heard your son going to Cornell. He goes, I was supposed to go to Cornell. I said, yeah, well, you made a good choice not to go to Cornell and play junior because of, your Hall of Fame career. But his daughter was with him, and his daughter just finished. She went to Cornell, and she was telling me about everything about Cornell and all this stuff. So it's pretty cool for him to experience that.
Hey, Jimmy, before you get going, I just want Glenn to know, when you go to Cornell and you watch a game at Liner Rink, it's one of the top 10 experiences you'll ever have in hockey. Especially a Harvard-Cornell game, Liner Rink, it's crazy.
So it's funny you say that because we have LaFerriere's on our team, right? Obviously, he went to Harvard. So we, when his last year in Harvard, I was like, I got to go to Cornell to watch him play. It was Harvard and Cornell. Holy shit. It was off the charts. It was off the charts. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was incredible. What an atmosphere.
I'll take it one step further because not everybody can go to a Harvard Cornell game, but for people that live in Central New York, if you can, Colgate Cornell is the next best thing. It is crazy. Yeah. My son's played 6 games at Liner Rink because of playoff games they play with Cornell. And I can tell you right now, it's one of the most amazing hockey experiences you'll ever have. Really
they support it. It's great. You're right, Pierre. I think it's one of the ones you have to, if you haven't done yet, definitely go and check a game out. It's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, all those old Barnes guys seem like a good time to go into there in upstate New York or mid-state New York. Hey, Glenn, just before we get into current times, I want to look back a bit on your career. And I'll take it back to when I was covering you when you were with the Bruins. Did you ever see yourself at that point getting into player development or hockey ops, or were you not even thinking about it at that point? You're just living in the moment.
Yeah, I would. Truthfully, I mean, at the time, when you're a player, you don't necessarily kind of think that way when you're in the middle of your career and kind of just you're trying to, you want to extend your career as long as you can because there's nothing like who's kidding who. There's nothing that can emulate being a player. Being a player is the best part. Like 1,000% is playing. And but after I was done playing, I think Dean, I met Dean, and he was the GM here, and he Dean's Dean, as everyone knows, and I think Dean is fantastic, fantastic. I know he has. I think he just is awesome, and he was great for me to get an understanding of, you want to work, but it's not just come to the office for an hour or just go on one road trip. You have to be committed on the other side. And you know that, Pierre. You guys know that. It's you're not just working 1 hour a week or I'll come in on Wednesdays. You are every day is a Monday in the hockey world and in the hockey operations. And I love it. I've been fortunate enough to be, working in player development. Now I'm kind of like senior director of player personnel, kind of do both jobs, but I love it.
And you've done a hell of a job there in LA. I just look at I'll use one of the guys, Quinton Byfield. I mean, where Quinton Byfield was 2 years ago and where he is now, Glenn, that's an amazing story. I know he had talent coming in. I get that, but his development has been phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's what he's a freak of nature. He's you have, like I said before, it's hard to be patient. The hockey world is they want everyone to sprint to be a superstar right away. Mm-hmm. So it was Rob was very patient with them. Our coaching staff was patient with them, and he was a great student. He was a great student. He wants to be the best. And, he took a huge step last year, playing with Kopitar. And Kopi wanted to play with him. And he wanted him every night. And Kempe wanted him every night. And he really he's come a long way. He expects a lot of himself. He wants to be the next, the next leader or captain of this LA Kings team. But, there's still lots of improvement to happen. But he's made a step. And the sky is the limit for this guy.
Hey, Glenn, is he better as a centerman or is he better in a winger in your eyes?
It's a great question. I think he's going to become a better centerman. I loved him on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
You got him to teach. You got him to watch Kopitar how hard being a centerman, elite centerman in the league is.
Yeah.
And pretty good guy to watch. I think he's going to be, in my opinion, I think he's going to be a centerman.
Glenn, one thing that Pierre stresses a lot, and always, when we're on this and talking to younger kids too, or players coming into league, is to always seek mentorship. How much have you seen Byfield do that since he's arrived in LA, and how has that progressed?
I think it's sometimes you just got to watch, right, in a locker room, and we don't necessarily see it because watch Kopitar, how he prepares himself every game. Watch Kempe, watch Doughty, watch whoever. Like, you watch these guys prepare every single, and it's freaking hard league. It's hard, man. It's these, like, if players say these players are freaking incredible. They are, honestly, the talent they have and the things they can do, it's incredible. But I think the biggest thing for him is watching Kopi every day, every single day for the last 2 years, even if he's tired, even if how he prepares himself, the little things that a lot of the people don't see down in the locker room. Right? Like, that's where everything happens. And on the road, how he gets his rest, how he treats the teammates, how he treats the trainers, how he listens to the coach, and all those things. He doesn't maybe realize that quite yet, but when Kopi's gone 5 or 6 years from now, or whenever he's finished, he'll be like, oh, now I get all that stuff that Kopi was doing. It's he's not realizing yet, because young guys are like, you guys know, I don't have to say it. It's they want everything given to them, but it's going to help. It's going to be incredible for him. He'll realize that down in a few years.
Jimmy, you know what? I'd like to hear what Glenn has to say, because when he came to Boston, obviously there were some marquee players there. Cam Neely was there, Adam Oates was there, Raymond Bourque was there. Glenn, tell everybody, because you just talked about Anze Kopitar, tell everybody it's like to be in the same dressing room with a guy like Raymond Bourque. And what his influence would be.
Unbelievable. I mean, he's like, in my opinion, because I got to play with some pretty good defensemen.
Yeah, you did.
Ray was, I mean, he is, holy shit. He's every day. Every day he wanted to be the best. There was no, he didn't take a rep off. Didn't take a rep off in practice. Every game, every shift, just the way he prepared and the way he knew that he didn't have to carry the team, wanted to carry the team and be the best. And, I'm still friends with Otzi. I love Otzi. He was great to me. I was a young guy. He, I'll never forget, like, Brian Sutter. It was Rick Bowness was my first coach there when I came from junior. For the rest of the year after the strike in 92 or 93, whatever year it was. And then Brian Sutter was my coach, and we're practicing, and Otzi used to, I was a young kid, and Otzi used to pass the puck so freaking hard to me. And it was on the tape, and I fumbled a couple. I was like 19. Jesus Christ, Otzi passed this. So Brian stopped practice, and he goes, everyone line up, and he had everyone in talking, and he goes, we're going to skate until Muzz knows how to receive a pass from Adam Oates. Oh, I was like, I think I might have shit my pants, but it's like, I know for sure that I wasn't. I was making sure that was the most important thing, but Otzi, after that, he was like so good to me. And people will say whatever about Adam Oates. I think he's awesome. I still talk to him regularly now, and he's working with all the players and doing all these things. But I really think, and then Cam Neely. I mean, what can you say about him? This guy is like, I was there when he scored the 50 and 49.
Yep.
He got a hat trick that night. honest to God, I thought he scored almost every period. Like, it was crazy.
I was there too much. Oh, it was unreal.
Yeah, it was awesome to see, and the way he prepared, and it's a funny story. In the old garden, the old locker room, there was 2 seats by the bathroom. Cam had one, and Ally Afraidy had one. So, and I had the seat behind the pillar. There was one seat for the young guys. It was right behind a goddamn pillar. I had to bend my legs up to tie my skates. And Cam was so intense to get ready for the games. This is just how Cam was. And Al's kind of like just cruising around, just like kind of not goofing off, but that's how he got ready. And Cam hated it. But Cam was I still, I talk to Cam at the draft. I see him quite often, and great teammates. I mean, Boston prototype players, and still there today in the city, and it's awesome.
Hey, Jimmy, Glenn will appreciate this story. So after my coaching, I go work on TV, and I'm doing a game in Chicago with Gordon Miller, and we're supposed to go out for dinner at Smith & Wollensky's in Chicago. There's a great chef there called Chef Hans. Everybody in hockey knew him at the time. If you went to Chicago, you'd go to Chef Hans. He'd take care of you. So we set up a dinner with Brian, but Brian says, before you go to dinner, I want you to come watch our practice. He was coaching the Blackhawks. So we go down, and he is slashing his stick across guys' legs and across their backsides. I'm like, oh, my God. So we're at dinner, and we're having a drink or whatever, and I say, what's with the slashing? What's He said, did you notice the other thing? I said, no, what is it? He goes, I used a wood stick. It hurts more. I was like, oh my God. And look, full disclosure, I'm friends with all the setters, but that was one of those where I was like, whoa, that's excessive.
And in those days, those wood sticks didn't break either.
No breaking. No breaking
at all. No breaking at all. So that was. But I was fortunate to be here too when Daryl was here, and Daryl is still see him today these days. Great human, as you know, as you said, Brian or Pierre. You know all those guys, and they are fantastic people. But I wouldn't. I'm not going to lie to you. I was scared shitless of Brian when I was 19, 20 years old.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
McGuire was there too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The old foghorn.
That's right. Yeah. Good
Muzz,
man.
I want to ask you quickly about Brandt Clarke and just his development so far. And we were just talking before you came on about Lane Hudson in Montreal, just the hype around him. What, as an organization, what do you guys do to sort of insulate young players when they're really built up as prospects?
Yeah, it's tough because those type of players, like Brandt Clarke, is a special breed. He's, I watched them obviously watched them a lot the last couple of years, and watched them in the World Juniors in Halifax, and they were in the final against Luke Hughes and the U.S. team,
Yes,
and both those, they're elite players, and they know who the best defense is on each team. Like Clarke knows that, and Luke knows that. And obviously the best player was Connor Bedard. So just to watch him raise his level, it's awesome. He's kind of like a Drew Doughty, like when he came into the league and how he raised his level at the biggest moments, the biggest games. There's no nerves. They want to have that moment. They want to be in that situation, just like Drew did when he was in the Olympics in Vancouver. He was like 19 or 20, and he was on the ice for the biggest moments. They had Niedermayer. They had all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Brandt Clarke is like that. I think he is built for the pressure moments. There's some work to do because you need to be able to play defense too. And we're lucky enough to have Sean O'Donnell and Matt Green and our development staff that work with them. And they really Brandt really loves working with them. But there's other parts of the game that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to defend. You can't just get like 60 points, 70 points right away. And you're not going to be able to run the power play right away because we have Drew Doughty. So it's the other things that he's going to have to be able to do. And he has come enormous leaps in the past year and a half, 2 years. He understands, he played in the minors the whole year. He's the best D-man in the minors last year in the American League. And he doesn't realize how profitable that's going to be for him. Just like Q, I was telling about Q, the same thing for him. He's going to understand like he's never going to play in the minors again. So he's going to understand, oh, yeah, I remember those 70 games or 60 games I played there. That was really good for me now that I'm playing in the league for however many years. But we're excited about him, but there's still some work to do. And he just has that, give me the biggest moment, I want to be in it.
Jimmy,
Yep.
Glenn is so spot on. I'm really proud of him because I've known him for a long time now. But I want him to know this about two of his confreres that he's working with in LA. So we'll first do Matt Green. The World Junior in 2005 was in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where Matt Green went to school. And not a lot of Michigan kids ended up in North Dakota back in those days. And so I was fortunate enough, during the day, I'd go work out in the gym there. And one day I saw Matt in the gym working out. And I want Glenn to know this because I know he knows what kind of condition Matt was like bench pressing 450 pounds. I'm not kidding you.
I believe you.
Glenny, it was unbelievable how strong he was.
Yeah.
And the best one is I'm doing the Stanley Cup final with Eddie Olchuk and Doc Emmerich in 2007. It's Ottawa versus Anaheim. And I'm on the Anaheim bench standing right next to Randy Carlyle. And Brian Burke wanted us to do that because they didn't have an inside the glass position. So one time, in front of me, Fronger, Niedermeyer, and O'Donnell are sitting right there. And I go, oh, that's an egregious turnover by Kent Hulse, I think it was. O'Donnell turns around and goes, what does that mean? I'm right in the middle of a Stanley Cup final. And Sean will remember that, Glenn. I was laughing so hard. And you know how Randy Carlyle was, Glenn. I don't have to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Tough old school guy. And he looks at me and goes, what the F are you laughing about? I said, I'll play after the game. Just focus on the game. I couldn't stop laughing.
That's an awesome story. Yeah. Oh, no, Odie will remember that. Odie remembers everything.
Odie will definitely remember that one. He definitely
100%.
Nice. Good stuff. Listen, Muzz, we appreciate you taking the time. This was great. And, it's good to hear your voice. I enjoyed you when you're in Boston, and I hope everything's going well out there, and best of luck this year.
Yeah, guys, great seeing you guys. Best of luck on the coming season, all that stuff. And anytime you want to chat or have any questions, give me a call.
Hey, Glenn, I can't wait to see you at Liner Rink. Get out there, watch Parker a ton. Cornell's going to be really good this year. I think you know that. They're going to be really good.
I'll be out there.
Good
Perfect.
luck.
Awesome, guys. Take care.
Thank you. From the LA Kings join us here on the eye test. That was fun, Pierre. And you know what? I like sometimes? Some people in my business get upset when their host or their interview and they don't get to the questions they planned, right? I've never been I just you got to roll with the conversation. Yeah. And that was one where you just let it roll. That was great.
Wow. So I will tell you, and he knows, Glenn, he knows, it was his draft year. I went to go to Moncton. He's a Maritime kid. There was a big event in Moncton. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think I drove 16 or 17 hours to get there. It was long. It was in the middle of the summer. And I watched him play, and I called my boss right away, Joe Marsh at St. Lawrence. And I said, Joe, I've just seen a kid. I'm telling you right now, if we can get this guy, he could play college hockey as a 17-year-old, and he's going to be really good, really good. And we ended up, doing a little bit of a dance to try to get him, but we knew that he was going to be an early pick in the OHL. He ended up going to Sudbury, and, that's obviously the glory years when Lindros was playing in Sault Ste. Marie. Well, he didn't. He went to Oshawa, drafted by Sault Ste. Marie. Right. Michael Pekka was playing in the league. Like, if you go look at the names of the guys playing in the Ontario League, then it was amazing. And Glen Murray was one of those names. It was amazing.
I just remember, when Joe Thornton arrived in Boston and Glenn, and watching him.
Murray, yeah.
And watching, as I covered that team, when I arrived on the scene like 2002. So those two teams, three teams actually, from 2002 to 2004 before the lockout, with Murray and Thornton, they were really blending and really hooking up as a good combo. But it was really fun to watch Muzz mentor Joe and really, embrace him and show him the ropes when they're on the road. I enjoyed that. And you could see that there might be something post-career for him like he's doing now, for sure.
What he didn't want to tell you is he's done well in hockey, obviously, but he's been amazingly successful away from the rink. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you, Glen Murray has worked his tail off away from hockey, and he's done fantastically well. And you could just hear it in his voice. he's an honorable person, really honorable. Again, when you started seeing a guy in 1988 and he's 16 years old, or 17 years, I think it was 16 actually, and you see where he is now, and you're like, wow, that was great, because you actually were right about him. Your vision about the guy was right.
Yep.
That always makes you feel a little bit better. It really does. I'm so happy for his son. Parker's a really good player. He's been hurt a lot. He's 6'4". He's 225.
He's a winger?
He's a winger. He's a power winger.
Okay.
If he could gain a half a gear, or maybe even a gear, if he could gain one more step to his game, he's got a chance to play. I'm telling you, Cornell's going to be a really good team this year.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he'll get to play as a freshman, but they're going to be worth watching. Cornell's going to have a legitimate chance to go deep in the NCAA tournament. Good
stuff. All right. Well, let's get back into Utah quickly. Then we'll tackle the Minnesota Wild, and we'll get right to your Q&A. Just continue on Utah, Pierre. You were talking about Cooley, but other young players that you think need to take a step for the team as a whole to take the next
I think
step.
they have the most underrated player in the league on their team, and nobody even knows how to say this guy's name. It's Mateus Michelli.
Yep.
He's the most underrated player in the league. Guy is really good. I'm telling you. He's really good. He could play on he's one guy, when they were bad in Arizona, he could play on any team in the league.
Yep.
And nobody talks about this guy. He's really good. He's really, really good. But what they did this summer, and I'm glad they did a good job. So they got John Marino. They got Ian Cole. They got Bobby Bortuzzo, Robert Bortuzzo. They got Sergachev. So they brought in 4 guys for their defense. Cole's won the cup twice. Bertuzzi's won the cup, and Sergachev's won the cup twice. So they brought in guys that have Stanley Cup cred, guys that have been deep, and guys that know how to win. And they all have character. Bortuzzo is character personified. Cole is personified character. Marino is all character. Sergachev's different. He's kind of a different cat, but he's big and he's a
little Iafrate in him.
But he's big and he can play.
Yep.
So now if you're Sean Dursey, undersized guy who plays there, you're surrounded by all these big, giant trees.
Yeah.
So your game becomes easier.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, Andre Tourigny became a better coach because general manager Armstrong decided, I'm going to get better on defense. I'm going to get bigger on defense. I'm going to get older on defense. And so all of a sudden, Tourigny, Madden, Forsyth, and Duhamel, the coaching staff there, they're all smarter coaches now.
Yeah.
They're smarter because of what Armstrong did in the offseason.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Michelli, because he is he's seriously, not enough people know about him, Pierre, but if you can stay up late for these games and watch Utah this season, I'm telling you, you'll be impressed. Pierre's absolutely right. Another guy I like, Pierre, he's a little older now, is Nick Schmaltz, who I think kind of flies under the radar as well, but he's really turned into a key piece of that team and that locker room from what I hear.
No, he is. No, Schmaltz is good. He was originally drafted out of North Dakota by Chicago. The downside of that is Chicago had the choice. Do we take Schmaltz or do we take Pasternak?
No.
And they took Schmaltz instead of Pasternak.
Wow.
So that's a little bit of a bogey. No disrespect meant to Schmaltz at all.
Exactly.
Pasternak is what he is. Schmaltz is a very useful player. He's got to stay healthy. But he's a highly cerebral, competitive kid. I really like the way he plays. I don't think he's a number 1 center. I think he's more of a 2-3 guy on an elite team, but he's really rounding into form. My biggest question about Arizona is going to be, can their older defense stay healthy? And will the pressure of being in a better market, not bad because of Arizona, just a market where they know they're going to be staying. I shouldn't have said the first term, but it's a better market because they know they're there. They know that there's no more, are they moving or are they staying? They know they're staying. Will those younger guys be able to play in that kind of environment?
Great segue to my final question on this team, because I think, Pierre, we're one of the few in the media right now kind of pumping their tires, but at the same time, I think within the organization, the first time in a while, and I think a combination of it too, is that they're in a new market, they're in a new home, They have security. They don't have to worry about that distraction anymore. They've got a gung-ho owner who wants to win, really excited about having a team. Can they handle those expectations, and how do they do it as they head into what some are hoping might be their most exciting season since maybe as an organization since, maybe the late 90s.
Positive energy out of the gate would help a lot. Getting a good start, getting the people around the team feeling good about it, not having to answer negative questions all the time. Oh, is this going to be just like Arizona again?
Yeah.
Well, I think the start really matters, and I think most of it starts with training camp. They've got a mature staff there. Blaine Forsythe, people don't know enough about him. He ran that power play in Washington when it was 1, 2, or 3 in the league, and he ran it for years.
Right.
So I expect the power play is going to be better. Johnny Madden is a 2-time Stanley Cup winner as a player in New Jersey and in Chicago, and he was an elite, not a good. He was an elite penalty killer. So their power play should be good. Their penalty killing should be good. And Torrington's a really good motivator, and the players like playing for him. Even though he's a tough guy, they like playing for him. So I think a lot of good things are going to happen there in Utah. I really do, Jimmy. I think a lot of good things are going to happen there.
I'm with you on that. We talked about it a little with San Jose, Pierre, what we thought they needed to do in this offseason. They're just at the beginning stages of this. But adding, as you started off here, talking about character guys, role players, specific role guys around that young talent. And you've seen Utah do that now for a few years. And so maybe now it comes to fruition.
Yeah, it should. They should be better. Again, the problem is –
how many points they got to get to, though, Pierre? They were 77 last year.
Yeah, so they've got to add 20 – they've got to add 21 more points to legitimately have a chance. So they've got to get 10 to 11 more wins. That's basically what it is.
And you're looking at the two divisions in the West, the Central and the Pacific. I don't know if you'd agree with me. I kind of feel 5 out of the Pacific, 3 out of the Central. Are you with me on that or no?
I am. The one team that – it will be interesting from the Central, whether they take another step will be will be St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis.
Will St. Louis take another step? And if they can, then I don't know. That could change. I think Dallas and the Preds are in. And then it comes down to, will there be 3 or will there be 4 from the Central? Yeah.
All right. Well, let's roll on to the Minnesota Wild. And Pierre, this is a team, as we kind of alluded to yesterday, and I told you I spoke to Billy Guerin. I'm going to have that story up soon. But, one thing that kind of a general theme in the conversation I got from him was he's trying to look at last year, not that you don't take the lessons and learn and try to improve, of course, but he wants to have this mentality where he doesn't want the players to be dwelling on everything that went wrong last year, because there were high hopes coming into last year for the Wild, and they did not live up to them for a variety of reasons. And he wasn't making excuses, but he wants to give them, I don't know if clean slate's too strong a word, but in that sense, that's what he's looking at.
I think that's fair. No, I do. I think it's fair. I think they know the neighborhood that they're in.
Yep.
I think they feel like they can compete with St. Louis. I think they know Colorado's really good. I think they know that Dallas is really good. I think they know, that Nashville's really good. So I think they know that. I think they're aware of those things. They probably see where Utah has been. So, it's a battle. It's not going to be easy. You got to see the number one thing for I think for a lot of these teams that are chasing, it's going to come down to the start. It really is going to matter. So the start's going to matter a ton.
Yep.
Whether you're Minnesota, Utah, I'll tell you Dallas could overcome a bad start. Colorado could overcome a bad start.
Correct. But other than that,
and I don't know if Nashville can because of all the hype.
I'm with you on that. I was just going to say that.
So I don't know, Jimmy, but all these teams need a good start. Like Utah has to have a good start. Minnesota has to have a good start. They have to. And if they don't, they're St. Louis. They need to have a good start. And so that's going to be an interesting thing to see how these teams start.
So I'm going to final thing on Minnesota. He told me basically straight out who his favorite pickup and the guy he's most excited about from getting in the offseason. Knowing the style that Billy Guerin played in his playing days and the type of hockey he likes, who do you think that player was, Pierre, that was his favorite pickup in the offseason?
I don't know. I want you to tell me. I really don't know.
Okay. It's a guy you were very high on at the trade deadline and was giving the Colorado Avalanche a lot of credit for picking up.
I'm trying
Mr.
to
Trennan.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jakob Trennan, he's big. He's nasty.
He
But
was hinting to me that's the identity he wants this team to take on if they can.
I could see that. I mean, they should be able to. Marcus Foligno still. They got guys that are big guys that can play. What I'm going to be interested to watch for is John Hines, a really good tactician.
Yeah,
For Minnesota, really good. The influence that Jack Capuano can have on the defense, on the penalty kill. I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I'm really, really interested to see how that plays, because I think Jack can do it. Will make a big difference there. I really do.
Quick take two. What's your take on the development so far, Marco Rossi?
I would say let's just do A being the best and D being the worst. I think it's been B.
Okay.
I think it's been B.
All right.
He needs to be. He needs to be, no pun intended, better.
Yep. He needs to step up, I think, and it's a big season for him. All right, let's get to our Q&A, Pierre. But before we do, let us tell you about Manta Sleep, who help me every night. The only mask designed and optimized for deepest possible sleep in any environment. 100% blackout for deeper sleep. Infinitely adjustable for personalized fit. Absolute comfort. Visit mantasleep.ca and use the code SICKET, that's SICKET, for 10% off. All right, let's get to the Q&A. What do we got? Ron LaRoque. Oh, that's right. Ron sent me this. So just so you know, Pierre, Ron sent me this question via direct message on Twitter today. And as you know, we won't get into it, but I was having kind of a weird, crazy day. And so I told him, I said, I'm going to forget. Ron, please ask again in the show or remind me. Just send me a quick message there and it will trigger my brain. Ron, you fit the whole question in there. I'm great. No, I'm glad you did, and I'll read it now. Today, it entered my mind, and the more I thought of it, could Lane Hudson actually play center and become a Selke Trophy winner one day? With his mobility and craftiness, I think he could do it. Pierre, I don't know if he's big enough for that, to play center in the NHL. That would be my only
when Phil Housley was drafted by Buffalo in the first round, there were a lot of people saying Scotty was going to do that with Phil. Well, there was no way he was going to do that with Phil.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people that thought when Brian Leetch was drafted by the New York Rangers in the first round out of Avon Old Farms that they were going to think about doing that with Brian Leetch, and they didn't do that. There were some people that talked about that with Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, and they didn't do that either. Part of why that is that defensemen get more of an opportunity to see the ice. Centermen are mostly peripheral. Defensemen have the whole ice sheet in front of them. So it's a totally different skill set. I can't see that happening. He's going to be a defenseman. He's going to be an elite defenseman. Not so much in how you see elite defensemen. He's just going to produce massive amounts of points.
And help that power play. All right, let's go. Next question. John Smith. What's up, John? I saw a trade rumor. Swayman to Colorado for I got to get my pronunciation.
Bergiev and Girard.
That's what I should say. And Samuel Girard. Thoughts? I would not do that if I was Boston. No way.
So why Samuel Girard's a good player, but they just gave up Matt Grzelcyk. Like, why would you do that? No,
they've got enough D.
They got enough. They don't need that. No, I mean anything could happen, I guess, but I don't see that happening.
You know what? I wonder if you saw that rumor because I haven't heard that.
But no, it's all good. I mean, rumors are great at this time of year, but I don't see that happen.
Yeah, I don't see it happen. All right, next question. Max R. What do you all think of the Raymond contract? Lucas
Jimmy asked me this last night.
Yep. And he liked it a lot. Right on target.
I like it. I thought it would be right around there. 8 years, $8 million. I mean, it's not as much as Kachuk. It's a little more than Svechnikov. It's good.
Yep. I'm with you.
He's going to be an 80 to 100 point player as long as he stays healthy. He just is.
Yeah, he's a key part of the future there in Detroit, and he's already arrived pretty much. So, all right, next question. Jason Logan, what's up, Jay? Hey, gents, question. When a player signs his contract and they have bonuses for how many games, points, playoffs, etc., does it go against the cap?
Cap is everything's signed. Cap.
Mm-hmm.
You think about how many people would try to avoid the cap by giving bonuses.
I know.
There'd be some creative people out there.
I know. And, of course, Jay is happy as he texted me right away when Crosby signed. So he's a happy Penguins fan for sure.
Well, so not everybody has the same hockey integrity as Sidney.
Yeah.
He's a Pittsburgh Penguin. He wants to do everything he can to salvage the team that he remembers, especially from 16 and 17, winning back-to-back cups. And him taking a little less money might allow them to do that. We'll see. I think it's a reach, but anytime he's involved, I'm not betting against him.
Yep.
I told you that last year, and I'll stick with it. As long as he's involved in something, I'm not betting against it.
Yeah, there's always hope. All right, next question. Randy Workman, talking about Utah, is Mikhail Sergachev an elite defenseman? I say yes.
I think he's it depends on how you quantify elite. I think he's a 3 on a Stanley Cup winning team. I think he's a 3.
Okay.
So if you look at in Tampa in particular, McDonough played ahead of him in a lot of spots and matchups, and Hedman played ahead of him in a lot of matchup situations. So, you look at it, you just got to be aware, but he is right there. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you quantify as being a top 4 defenseman as elite, I'd say yes. If you think anything below a 1-2 is less than elite, then he's not. Depends on how you quantify it.
Okay. Next question. Bill Van Vagel. Hey, guys, do Mark Giordano or Cal Clutterbuck get a PTO somewhere? Good question.
I don't know. See, I was surprised Cal didn't get one, even though Matt Murray did with the Islanders. I was
Matt Martin. Yeah.
Matt Martin, yeah. I was surprised when Cal didn't get one, and Matt did. Giordano, it's tough because I'm too tied in. I'm too much respect for the man, too much respect for the person. I'm telling you, Jimmy, this is a guy never drafted out of junior. What a career. Just remember when he was playing in Calgary early in his career, and Mike Keenan was a coach, and Mike actually let me fly. They flew, I think, from Chicago back to Calgary, and I was doing a bunch of their games for TSN at the time. And right after that season was over, Mark had to leave the Flames because they didn't give him the right contract. He went and played in Russia for a year.
Wow.
Go look it up. This guy's he's character personified, Mark Giordano. And so for me to say anything, that would be perceived as negative, I can't do it. So I hope he gets an opportunity.
Exactly.
I hope he gets an opportunity.
Exactly. All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel again. In your opinion, will the NHL ever allow 19-year-olds to play in the AHL, or are the NHL and the CHL in cahoots?
Well, no, so it's not the NHL that's doing that. It's the major junior agreement. Now, can the league break that off? Yeah, I mean, look, there are guys I know that leave college that go play junior. Warren Fogle, he went and played major junior and then left and went and played pro. There are guys that do that. They leave college and they go play as 19-year-olds in the American Hockey League. You'd have to look it up for me, Jimmy, but Zach Ewens is one that comes to mind. He left Merrimack, signed with Florida, and he's been playing in the American League and the East Coast League since he left Merrimack. I don't know how old he was when he signed. It's UENS. Very solid defenseman, but he's one that I remember that left college, I think before he was 20, to go play in Florida.
I'm looking right now.
Zach Ewens.
Yep, out of Belleville, Ontario.
Yep. Panthers
4th round, 150 overall in 2020. So he left Merrimack in the 2021-22 season. He went to, according to Hockey DB, they had him going right to Charlotte.
So there you go. So he's 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about. So it goes.
Sorry.
I think the major junior operators do a good job. I think everything's going to be in flux because of the potential for major junior players now to go play college when they're 20.
That was my next question.
So
okay, beat me right to it.
Everything's kind of in flux here.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, Pierre. Is what is that development? How does that affect the next CBA, and will it play any kind of role?
It could. The one thing I'd say is there are a lot of people, quietly wishing that major junior would kind of feel pain. I'm not one of those guys.
Yeah.
They major junior hockey is phenomenal. I'm just telling you, I've been a lot of their rinks, almost all.
It's part of the roots of the NHL. That's the way I look at it.
It's I think one of the most direct routes to the NHL. Especially for elite players like Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor Bedard, you look You look at them all. Everybody's got a different path. But just because you choose one path doesn't mean the other path is bad. You know, and I get a little upset when I hear people kind of railing on major junior hockey. I'm a big fan. I like watching all their games. So
yeah, I'm glad you said that, Pierre, too, because I know that obviously we have a heavy emphasis on college hockey in this podcast, and we get excited about it. But that doesn't mean we don't see the value in junior hockey, or we don't root for them either. That doesn't mean that at all. It's just I don't know about people, but I mean, I just happen to know a lot more about college because I'm surrounded by so many good college hockey teams where I'm based. So
yeah, no, I played college and coached college, and my kid plays in college. Yeah, but I can tell you one thing, and you can ask the people in Blainville. They drafted my son in Blainville-Boisbriand, the Quebec Major Junior League, and they called us the day of the draft, and I said, I guarantee I'm going to let my son go there for 48 hours, which was the rule at the time, and he did. Yep. And they wanted him to stay longer, and I said no.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to keep all the options open. So that's what we did. It wasn't nothing personal.
Yep.
Just, you know, he's a 16-year-old kid. I'm keeping the options open.
Perfect. All right, next question. Randy Workman, do either of you think the Kings have good enough goaltending to compete with the big boys? Well, I wasn't going to bring that up with Muzz. But, you know, as we're talking with him, I mean, that when I'm thinking about, okay, what's the weakness here? That to me that's the weak spot right now.
That's going to be their big question mark.
Yeah. I wonder if they make a move by the deadline. Who knows? But
that's going to be their big question.
Yeah.
I completely
and obviously, Pierre, they know it. I mean, as I reported, you know, many people reported too. They were in on Allmark last year.
You were on it harder than anybody. Don't shortchange yourself.
Yeah.
You were on
I appreciate that. But that obviously there's a desire to improve that goaltending. They just haven't yet. All right, next question. GB, Jimmy, how do you think the Bruins will do this year? Well, I'll save that for our Adams Division preview in 2 weeks, but just short term, in a short summary there, I think let's see what happens with the Swayman contract, first of all, and if that carries into the season, because as Pierre was saying, the starts to an NHL season are so important in today's NHL. So I think that could have a huge bearing on how long that lasts. But besides that, I like them. I like their defense a lot. As Pierre and I have said, they still need a 1C. But that's where I stand with that. But I'll get more in depth on that in a couple of weeks when we close it out with the Atlantic Division. I think I called them the Adams Division by accident there, Pierre.
Well, that's all right. Back in the day, you didn't want to have to play Boston, Montreal, and Quebec too often in the old Adams.
Or the Whale. Don't shortchange the Whale.
When I was in Hartford, we were in a rebuild. And so, you know, you had some teams that had some firepower.
Yeah.
And it was no fun going to Boston. It's just no fun going to Boston.
But from 86 to like 92.
Well, that was,
Bruins Whalers games. Oh, man.
I happened to end up there in 92, so it changed a little bit.
Just bad timing. That's all. All right. Next question. Jason Logan. Jay, thanks for your earlier question. And Jay asks now, is Phil Kessel going to end up with a team? Maybe sign him to a 1-year, $1 million deal. He's a great player that gets points. Just before you answer that, Pierre, your take too, I have heard, I think it was Elliot Friedman or something, or someone else was talking about just he's really contacting teams right now. He really wants to just keep playing. He doesn't care what his salary is. He just wants to stay in the game. So much so that apparently he was going to be, it didn't take off. It never happened, but he was going to be part of that 3-on-3 league just to keep playing.
So do me a favor, Jimmy.
I love the love of the game going on with Phil Kessel right there.
So Phil was in training camp with Vancouver's farm team last year in Abbotsford. People forget that.
Yes.
Phil is a few points short of 1,000. Jimmy, tell me how many.
Yeah, I'm going to it right now.
Because that's one of the reasons why there's so many people in the hockey world who like Phil, and I'm one of them, that would like to see him get a chance to break the 1,000-point barrier.
He's 8 points shy. That's it.
That's why. Mm-hmm. So that's the urgency. If he doesn't play this year, he's not getting it. Think about, you know, you get 1,000 points in the NHL. And one thing that nobody ever says about Phil Kessel, and I'm going to tell you because it's near and dear to my heart, Phil Kessel had testicular cancer when he was a young player. Nobody seems to remember that. And he battled through it. He never complained. He never whined. He just did it. A lot like Shea Theodore, who plays for Vegas. Didn't complain, didn't whine, used it as a measuring stick and battled through it, and they're both fine. Yeah. I like Phil a lot. I've had a lot of fun times with Phil over the years. He's a good person.
You know what? Let's revisit. I have Phil Kessel story, but not now because we're pressed against it. But we'll get back to that. I'll remind myself right now when I get off. All right, next question. Peter McNeil, do you think Ottawa will push for a playoff spot, or is the Atlantic too strong?
I think they will.
They'll push.
New coach, Travis Green coming in.
Yep.
I think that's good. It's just a different message. Nothing against my buddy DJ Smith. Nothing against Jacques Martin. They're both my friends. But different message. They're aligned with the new ownership group and the new management team, so the players know that. Kachuk should have another huge year. The key is going to be, can Pinto really go up another notch and be a mini Bergeron? If he can, that's huge. Josh Norris has to stay healthy. That's really important for them. And this should be the year Jake Sanderson elevates to another level. And if he does, that could really help them a ton. And obviously, the goaltending situation is much better now with Linus Ullmark there than what it's been for the last few years.
I agree with everything Pierce said. All right, how many more we got? Let's go. McGinnis picks. What's up, buddy? Andrew McGinnis from the formerly of the Ice Guys, a great hockey handicapper. What happens to a team like Ottawa if they don't improve as much as they're expecting with the improvement in goal and more experience for young guys? As a Habs fan, I see a lot more pressure on them, much more pressure. Totally agree, Andrew.
Oh, what's that young man's first name?
Andrew McGinnis.
Andrew, you are spot on. You
fine province of Nova Scotia, Pierre.
You could, depends what part of Nova Scotia, though. From near the Cabot Trail, and then I want to be friends with him because I want to go golfing. But no, seriously, Ottawa's going to have pressure. It's not just going to be from ownership, and it's not going to be from management. It's going to be from their fan base
and the media. Oh yeah,
there's going to be pressure there.
Yep.
And it's been 7 or 8 years now with no playoffs.
Yeah.
And they've been promised a lot.
Yep.
They've been promised a lot. So this is a big year for Ottawa.
Again, not to just keep beating a dead horse, but I'll say it again. Good start. So many of these teams with those expectations need that start because it could turn south in a hurry if they don't have it. All right, next question. Is that it? We might be done. Oh, that was the last one. Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. And we appreciate everyone else's questions today. And great talking with good old Glen Murray with Muzz. That was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Glenn was fantastic. Jimmy, make sure he gets the show, please.
I will.
He was fantastic. He really was.
And I just want to give a thanks to the Kings too for helping to set that interview up. They were great helping us out there. So thanks to them. Thanks to Shane, our wonderful producer in Montreal, and to our Sick Media staff, who I know the majority of them, Sammy and Anello and the crew, they're all making their way back from Nashville. Last I heard, they were in Cleveland, Pierre, the fine city of Cleveland, the dog pound. So I hope they have a safe travels home. And to you, Pierre, have a wonderful night. And to our listeners, viewers, the same to you. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He's Pierre McGuire. We'll talk to you the eye test tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the eye test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.